Epstein accomplices, mass DHS thugs, corporate criminals, Tom Homan, Eric Adams, insurrectionists, the list goes on. And you talk about fighting crime, but you protect any criminal who helps you and Trump turn our country into an authoritarian gangster state.
Well, I don't know why you're not running for office again, but after the filing deadline, you publicly announced you would not run when your chief of staff, Patty Garcia, announced and took your seat.
You prosecute the president's enemies like Jim Comey and Tish James while giving impunity to federal agents who are murdering and brutalizing and terrorizing constituents, including in Chicagoland, in my neighborhood. Attorney General Bondi, glad you finally made it here after hiding for 4 months from this committee. I understand why you're hiding from us.
Chairman?
You're one of the worst attorney generals in our history and an instrument of Donald Trump's lawless authoritarian agenda, and I'm glad the American people are seeing who you are, how you act, and the lack of good values. You weaponize the Department of Justice to target immigrants, working families, and anyone that Trump deems an enemy of the state, all to protect real powerful criminals, including in your administration. My Democratic colleagues have focused on your cover-up of the Epstein files and your passion for protecting pedophiles and child traffickers. That alone is grounds for impeachment. But there's so much more to your corrupt tenure as Attorney General. You directed prosecutors to investigate elected officials in welcoming jurisdictions, and you got thrown out of court when you sued Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois. You directed prosecutors to prioritize low-level immigration cases while gutting enforcement against corporate criminals and public corruption. You revived draconian law of 1798, which should be repealed to illegally send people to a torture prison in El Salvador. You fired over 100 immigration judges, including the assistant chief immigration judge in Chicago, without cause, and installed unqualified military judges whom you instructed to deny asylum in violation of the law. You prosecute the president's enemies like Jim Comey and Tish James while giving impunity to federal agents who are murdering and brutalizing and terrorizing constituents, including in Chicagoland, in my neighborhood. I saw it last year firsthand. You and Kash Patel covered up the murder of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in my district by ICE agents. You tried to investigate Renee Good instead of the ICE agent who murdered her, and you tried to cover up the murder of Alex Peretti by CBP agents. You bring fake charges against protesters like the Broadview Six and Marimar Martinez, whom your administration labeled a domestic terrorist. This is the Montessori teacher who lives in my district, while protecting thugs who terrorize us and DHS authority. That's what you do. Protect and enable the criminals who are plundering our society and destroying what's left of democracy and the rule of law. Epstein accomplices, mass DHS thugs, corporate criminals, Tom Homan, Eric Adams, insurrectionists, the list goes on. And you talk about fighting crime, but you protect any criminal who helps you and Trump turn our country into an authoritarian gangster state. And after all this, nobody supports you. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about conservative judges who are condemning the rampant lawlessness at DOJ under your leadership. Your prosecutors are quitting in droves over being forced to prosecute low-level immigration cases, including in Chicagoland. Your MAGA base despises you because you're covering up the Epstein file. How ironic. And even your own boss has repeatedly complained to your staff about you, calling you weak and ineffective. Weak and ineffective. That's what Donald Trump thinks of you already.
When this explosive clash broadcast live in February 2026, Critics viewed it as a career-ending broadside. Fast forward to today, 2026, the fallout has proven definitive. President Trump did indeed lose patience, officially firing Attorney General Pam Bondi in April following relentless backlash over the botched and heavily redacted release of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
You will not win, however. Chicagoland rejects you. The American people reject you. Our communities have demonstrated our strength and resilience in the face of cruelty and cowardice. Democrats must impeach and remove lawless officials like you and Kristi Noem and impose accountability for every criminal action. But you can spare yourself more humiliation. Resign now and submit yourself to accountability by the American people. Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record this Wall Street Journal article dated January 12, 2026, entitled, "Trump has complained about Pam Bondi repeatedly to aides."
While the hearing room descended into pure cross-examination theater, the legal and institutional wars didn't stop with Bondi's April ouster. Just weeks ago, House Democrats launched a furious new investigation after top DOJ lawyers were caught actively shielding the former Attorney General from answering questions about her private conversations with Trump during a closed-door deposition.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Objection. Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I thank the chairman.
May I have 20 seconds, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let's hear the opposition research.
Thank you. That's absolutely right, that they're not running for, he's not running for office again because, well, I don't know why you're not running for office again, but after the filing deadline, you publicly announced you would not run when your chief of staff, Patty Garcia, announced and took your seat.
That's a state matter. That isn't a federal matter. You should investigate crimes.
You
should investigate violations of the law.
Looking back for mid-2026, this volatile House Judiciary Committee clash between Representative Chuy Garcia and then Attorney General Pam Bondi has taken on far greater historical significance than it appeared to have at the time. What many cable news broadcasts initially framed as another heated partisan exchange now stands as an early public indication of the mounting pressures facing the Justice Department during Bondi's tenure. Rather than causing her eventual dismissal, Garcia's questioning highlighted several of the same issues that would continue to dominate debate in the months leading up to President Donald Trump's decision to remove Bondi as Attorney General on April 2, 2026. One of Garcia's sharpest lines of questioning focused on the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files, an issue that remained a major subject of congressional oversight and public scrutiny throughout the following months. By pressing Bondi on transparency surrounding the release of those records, Garcia underscored concerns that extended well beyond partisan politics. Subsequent reporting and oversight efforts continued to examine the department's document review and redaction process, while lawmakers from both parties questioned whether the public had received a complete and transparent accounting of the investigation. The controversy surrounding the Epstein files became one of the defining challenges of Bondi's tenure and continued to fuel congressional investigations after her departure. Garcia also challenged Bondi over immigration enforcement, changes within the immigration court system, and broader concerns about the Justice Department's priorities. Those exchanges reflected a wider national debate over executive authority, prosecutorial independence, and the balance between immigration enforcement and other federal law enforcement responsibilities. During the final weeks of Bondi's tenure, reports of internal disagreements, employee departures, and criticism from former Justice Department officials added to growing questions about the department's direction and leadership. Perhaps the most consequential aspect of the hearing, viewed in hindsight, was the discussion surrounding reports that President Trump had become increasingly dissatisfied with the Justice Department's performance. While Bondi forcefully defended her record throughout the exchange, Later reporting indicated that confidence in her leadership had eroded inside the administration. Those developments ultimately culminated in her dismissal and the appointment of acting leadership to oversee the department during a period of continued congressional investigations and legal disputes. Viewed from today's perspective, this hearing stands as one of the more revealing oversight confrontations of Bondi's time as Attorney General. Garcia's questioning did not determine the outcome of her tenure, but it anticipated many of the controversies that would later dominate national attention, including debates over transparency, executive influence, immigration enforcement, and public confidence in the Justice Department. As a result, the exchange has become an important reference point for understanding the political and institutional challenges that ultimately defined the final chapter of Bondi's leadership.